Hey guys, Thomas the Silly Jr. here, aka Mustached Tom, here to review Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible Fallout. Whew. So, you may have seen my previous Mission Impossible review. I believe that came out last year. So I decided to check out this one. I believe this is a direct follow-up, since it involves around more people from Syndicate and this other group named the Apostles, and so on and so forth. Spoilers abound. Blah blah blah. So, anyways, it starts with some narration as Tom's character Ethan learns more about the apostles, and we learn about this whole the bad guy group wanting to spread sickness across the world to create further chaos to create a better peace. That is their ultimate goal. And their team from last time, Benji and Luther, are also there to talk to him about the mission and the potential deal that they are willing to make. So, Luther has this set up in the back, and his little system there gets turned off, and their little business deal goes up against this other group who wants essentially to get in on this plutonium that will cause things to go boom. But nonetheless, Luther is taken out of the equation, and Benji and Ethan are left to essentially stay behind and face the consequences of not having any backup in that regard. But nonetheless, they manage to get out of that situation. And so a shootout begins with, I believe, some of the Apostle members and other agents, and there's a lot of stuff like that going on. It gets a little bit confusing here and there what group belongs to what exactly. I do think that is one of the weaker aspects of this movie, though I do think it does redeem itself in some aspects. Nonetheless, Ethan sees that the situation is dire with Luther being captured, so he shoots him in the chest to have the other guys flee. And the plutonium is then gone, taken away by some of these Apostle guys. So they show that this little newscast thing is going on in this little hospital room where 3 nuclear blasts go off, and they visit this doctor, as we come to learn, one of the leaders of the Syndicate. And that's what I'll refer to him as, because I don't recall his name being mentioned, but whatever. So he talks about his little thing about, with greater pain comes greater peace. That's his entire motto. And they want to give this code. He wants to give the code, but only if the newscast will do this little thing for them to read this little message that he has. So they allow him to do that, only to reveal that the entire thing was a fake out. The entire building was a fake out, and Luther and Benji were in on it. Benji being disguised with one of those mask reveals that this series has been known for. So Ethan talks to their boss, played by Alec Baldwin. I was trying to get remember some who were some of the other cast, being Simon Pegg, who plays Benji, and I believe it's Vin Rames as Luther again. Anyways, I think it's Vin Rames. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure about that. Nonetheless, putting that aside, so they get this little mission, and Ethan, talks to his boss about there being like no little threads or whatever, no bullshit, essentially on this mission. And a female agent named Erica, I believe her name was, arrives on the scene. She's like with the FBI, and she argues that stuff needs to happen a certain way, and then talks to the other guy, the boss. And then Ethan gives them the rundown on the plan and the tech that they're going to be using. So the FBI rushes out and Ethan joins in. The FBI agent we come to learn his name is Walker. So they are teaming up with one of the FBI agents to go on this little mission. So this Walker guy acts a little bit carelessly, not deploying his thing fast enough so that Ethan has to help. And as they make their way to this building, Ethan has to tumble a bit to save Walker, and he kind of makes a joke out of it, or a small little thing. And so they eventually make their way to this building where this dance party is happening. And they only get separated for a moment, but make their way into this restroom, where the two of them meet this other guy who they are looking for to potentially get another mask, so they can meet someone else named, I believe they are trying to, at this point in time in the movie, meet this character named the Widow. So Ethan tries to scan the face, but this guy knows how to fight, so he fights both of them off a bit, and they're trying to grab the gun, and this other woman appears and shoots the guy down. So Ethan decides he's going to meet the Widow as he is, and this female agent that apparently worked with them in the past joins them in this little mission. I'm trying to click on something here. It's not... No, anyway. So she joins in as Ethan talks to the Widow, and they have to get out of the situation as other men are just trying to make their way in. And the other agent and Walker cover him as they make their way out, and they start to talk about this other guy named Solomon Lane, who I assume is the name of the syndicate boss I was mentioning. Yeah, he was like one of the main syndicate guys, maybe even the creator, I believe. So Ethan sees that one of the plutonium ball things that they are in search for is with the Widow, and there are two others that are out there. So he decides to make a deal with this other agency, essentially. And it shows this little method of what they want Ethan to do, which is take out all the police in order to get this info. And they're teaming up with the French government, essentially, to go about this. And he claims that he's going to do it their way. But Walker talks to the agent, the female agent that's with them, about being a ghost and being able to operate at any cost. Or I believe he was talking to the Widow about that. Anyways, he gives Walker gives her a phone to like do a little thing. I don't think it ever amounts to anything, or if I forgot if it did. Anyways, Ethan sees a helicopter land, and Walker asks about who the leader of the syndicate did, and Ethan pretty much goes over all the stuff in the previous movie or other stuff that he probably did outside of that as well. So they bum rush a car as the police are sort of turned their way, and Ethan then drops all of the team, the French team, out of their little truck, and the syndicate leader is picked up via scuba gear and is picked up by both Benji and Luther. Thus, Ethan and Walker find this little wedge in between two buildings and start to head up via bikes as they escape the truck that they were just in and start a chase scene via trying to avoid all the cops. And the chase does go on a bit long. It's a bit of a lengthy chase. I think they could have cut down a little bit on this, as the movie is a little bit on the long side here. Nonetheless, Ethan gets hit by a car, and then he has to run on foot for a bit, but then he jumps down this hole and joins Luther and Benji. And they arrive at this little building, or they're underground, and they run into this thing, the shutter, and they open it to reveal that they only ended up back outside where this police leader sees them, and they try to get out of the situation, but the officer is shot by one of the French guy's men. Thus, Ethan has to shoot all of them down to try to protect her. So, as they're doing that, this unknown biker, who I'm just going to reveal now is the female agent we've seen before, is now following them. And she tries to shoot the leader of the syndicate while they end up fleeing from the biker. And another chase scene happens now with the biker chasing the Ethan and crew. So anyways, we hear more about how the syndicate was trying to set the world free with their own methods. And Ethan talks to the widow about how things went down in the reality. So the widow wants the other female agent captured in order to make this deal go through. So they meet, the female agent and him, and they catch each other up, and she's with this other group now. And they have to take each other out potentially to get what they want respectively. And the female agent ends up already near the widow at some point. And then Ethan meets with their boss, once again played by Alec Baldwin. I wrote her name way later, sorry. Elsa is the female agent that is opposing Ethan at this point. So anyways, Ethan mentions how this dossier that they have is set up for a potential trap. And they find out that Walker is an assassin set out by the boss to essentially take out Ethan if anything goes off. They trust Walker and take out the boss, only to see that Walker immediately turns off the computer. So Walker was with the syndicate as we get this info. We discover that Benji was the one who stayed behind as a fake syndicate leader with the mask on, just as Walker revealed all this information. And turned out that the boss was fine. So the FBI agent calls in, and more agents come in, and a shootout starts going down. Walker had some of his men, and again, that's what leads to this shootout. And in the process of all this, the boss, Mr. Baldwin, ends up being stabbed, and he dies. So more men chase Ethan as he's trying to run through, and Elsa just ends up kind of joining them. They kind of did rush that aspect of it, the whole Elsa being against them and suddenly is just with them, and there's like no sense of like, oh, you know, I was just with this other group, but whatever. Anyway, so Ethan makes his way to this church and he's still being chased. While he's also chasing Walker, who is again a part of Syndicate. So Ethan catches up to Walker on this elevator, but Walker does not shoot him, who has the perfect opportunity to do so, but doesn't do so. Anyways, Walker gets to his helicopter and sets off. And we learn as Ethan rejoins his little group that there is this bomb that has no failsafe, or once it goes off, it can only be turned off once it starts, essentially, this little countdown. So anyways, Luther tells Elsa about Ethan's past and how things ended up with this other woman he used to be with, named Julia. So Ethan sees that he only wants to trust the 4 team members he has, which does include Elsa all of a sudden, as I just mentioned. But as they make their way there to the location, the countdown already starts, and they have to remove things and get a device to stop the bomb. So the 4 of them split up. And in the process, Ethan sees Julia, who is now with her new husband, and they sort of leave Luther behind as they find the first bomb. So the countdown starts. So Ethan goes after the helicopter, which Walker is on, since he has a detonator, and Benji and Elsa look for the second bomb. So Luther has help. He gets a little help from Julia, and while that's going on, Ethan goes after the helicopter, chasing it, and then tries to drop this little load he has, but misses. Walker tries to shoot Ethan. All the while, Elsa goes after the syndicate leader and gets struck down and then bound just as she finds the second bomb. So the syndicate leader has her trapped, and Benji comes in and gets taken down, and Elsa gets out to help Benji before he gets hung, and that's the little setup that they have. So she helps to attempt to help Benji while also trying to take out the syndicate leader, and she manages to do both. And thus, Ethan and Walker are having a little trouble as both their helicopters go down this hill, and Ethan drops down even further with Walker. And we see that Luther sees that there's nothing else he can do at the moment, so they just have to wait for essentially Ethan to do the rest, get the detonator, so once they cut the wires, everything will be all fine and dandy. So anyways, they end up on this cliff where Ethan and Walker fight over the detonator, and they fall off the cliff, this cliff that they're facing. So the hook that is holding onto a helicopter starts to crush and have them fall further. It manages to latch on while Walker gets kicked down further on this little ledge that they are now on. Ethan climbs back up via rock climb via just rock climbing, pure and simple without any of the wire. And so does Walker, but Ethan pulls the hook down right on Walker, and then he gets, the hook to death. So Ethan climbs back up just as the wire is getting set down to the countdown of 1. They both manage to cut the wires, Ethan has the detonator taken care of, and everything is set and done. So Ethan is taken to the hospital where he gets to talk to Julia, and he's just sorry about everything, but she's super happy that everything turned out a-okay. So the rest of the team comes in. They mention how the widow got their hands on the syndicate leader, and they laugh over how short of amount of time they had before things got boom and they all ended up dead, and they cut it close, and that is the end of Mission Impossible Fallout. So I think it's an okay next Mission Impossible movie. This one definitely feels like it's the last one. Like the last one the previous one definitely felt like there were some threads that led to this, but this one kind of ends with at least it feels like a definitive end. But I could totally be dead wrong on that. Again, I do feel like the chase scenes go on a little bit too long. I think that they could have been cut down for some time to save on some time in the movie's length. The team aspect and trickery, it does its bit. They do their bits. I think the team aspect is a little bit shy. Again, just having Elsa just suddenly join them feels completely rushed. Other than that, I think the movie is fine. It's a fine action flick. It has a few flaws here and there, so I'll give it a 6 out of 10. And that is my review of Mission Impossible Fallout. So if you enjoyed this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out that link in the description. I'll head you over to my Patreon page, and any donations are greatly appreciated. Until next time, everyone, bye-bye.